Now we're going to start working on some isolations of body parts. All right, so I've got my lead line. I'm going to put my lead line over my arm. So I've got my left arm free in case I need it. Got my stick in my right arm, and we're going to ask this horse to yield its hindquarters off of rhythmic pressure. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stand about at the front of his shoulder. Okay, I'm going to be about 3 body lengths away, 3 human body lengths away from his shoulder. I'm going to bring my energy up and stack my spine. Okay, so he sees me coming out of neutral, and every time I breathe in and come out of neutral, I'm telling my horse I'm about to do something. I'm going to use that when I ride too. I'm going to come out of neutral to ask my horse to do something. Then I'm going to relax, and tell my horse that it's game over. I just want you to stand still. Okay, so energy up. I've got my belly button pointed at his last rib in his rib cage. If I were to take this stick and draw a straight line from my belly button, it should be right on his rib cage. Stack my spine, and I'll start to rhythmically drive, okay, my stick, and ask his rib cage to move. If he comes in with his shoulder, I'm going to block him with my left hand and ask him to move his hindquarter, okay, with my stick and string. Okay. The goal is for him not to walk forward. I'm just to yield the hip. Okay, and I don't want him to come over the top of me with his shoulder. So I'm going to block him with my stick and ask him, don't come at me with your shoulder, just move your hip. Okay, so we'll try that again. Energy up, rhythmic pressure with my stick, good. If he tries to walk forward, I'll lift my lead rope up and stop him. Okay, I'll rub him and let him think for a minute. Okay, I'd like to see him lick his lips. Okay, but if he can just put his head down or blow out, I'll take that too. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stack my spine again, lift my lead rope up, get his attention. Okay, rhythmically drive with my stick. Again, my belly button is focused on his hip. Okay, and if he doesn't move, I'm going to slowly increase my pressure until he moves his hip. Okay, I'll ask him again. There. Okay, when I just brought my energy up and moved my stick once, he moved his hip, and I immediately release, because we want to release pressure on the slightest try so they get lighter and lighter. Okay, and if they don't move, we can increase the pressure incrementally. So the phases of pressure, of rhythmic pressure, are you drive the air, then you'll drive the hair, skin, muscle, bone. Okay, and we usually wait at first, when they're young horses like this, about 3 seconds between each phase. Okay, so we'll try that again. Energy up, stack my spine, drive with my stick, focusing on his hindquarter. If he doesn't move, I'll drive the hair, so just touching him on his hair. Now I'll go a little bit firmer and touch him on the skin, and as soon as he moves, I'll release pressure and let him think. Then I'll ask again, energy up, rhythm in my stick. Don't let his shoulder come across, and remind him, I just want your hindquarter. There you go. Good. Lift my rope up to stop the drift. Good. See if we can relax, and if he'll lick his lips, blink his eyes, okay, or put his head down and blow out. Okay, he's showing curiosity. He's sniffing my watch and kind of grooming me. Okay, so I know I still have curiosity. I know I still have him connected into the relationship. He's not trying to look away. He's not calling out to other horses, and he's not trying to walk away out of my personal space. So I know that even though I've had to bring my leadership up, he's not taking this offensively. Good. Okay. He licked his lips right after I yielded his hindquarter, okay? And he didn't walk away, and I didn't have to correct him. So what I'm looking for as I'm working on these maneuvers is at what phase are they yielding? Are they yielding at lighter and lighter phases? And are they understanding what the end goal of the exercise is? The end goal of the exercise is that I can move his hips without his forehand going anywhere, and he can pivot his hips around the forehand, okay? 360 degrees in one day, right? But the first thing I have to have is he needs to yield one step without walking forward, one step with his hindquarter without walking forward, okay? And we'll discuss this more as we go along, but one of the reasons why this is important is because we don't want our horses assuming that all pressure means forward. Because when we start riding them, one of the problems that can happen is that if they view all pressure as moving forward, when we get into complex maneuvers, lateral maneuvers for example, the horses will go forward instead of lateral, because they assume that all pressure means forward. So right now we're teaching them isolations, and the isolations are going to, one, teach our horses that they don't need to walk forward unless we've asked them to. So right now I'm just asking his hip to move, good, without yielding anything else, without moving his shoulder and without walking forward. Good, okay? Once we can get that about 3 times with a young horse, at phase 1, okay, so just yielding off of rhythmic pressure, okay, of our energy and a little bit of our stick coming from our core, okay, not just from our arm, that's my arm, this is my core, okay, that's coming from our core, then we can move on to the next side or the next exercise. So I'm going to switch sides on him because he gave me 3 times at phase 1 without walking off, moving his hip. Okay, I'll come on his right side, bring my energy up, start to drive toward his hip, and bring my energy down as soon as he yields. Okay, I'll ask him for his attention first. I want his attention. Now I'll bring my energy up, start rhythm in my core, through my arm. I'll touch his hair, skin, good, until he yields his hindquarter. Good, and I can rub him, okay, because I want to make sure that he doesn't assume that everything means away. I want to make sure that I can come in here, rub on him, and he knows that he gets some good stuff too. Okay, we'll do it a couple more times this direction. Energy up. Good. And I'll just lift my hand up to make sure he doesn't come in closer with his shoulder, because I don't want him to get into the habit of yielding his shoulder too. Okay, if he tries to walk away, I'll lift my lead rope up to stop him, okay, to stop him from drifting, and I'll ask him again. Energy up, rhythm with my stick, good. He takes 1 step and stop. Okay, I'm just encouraging him not to lean on me. Good. Okay, I'll rub you. You don't rub me. Okay, we'll ask him a couple more times. Good. There you go. And I'd like to be able to yield his hip without having to lift this lead rope to support. Okay, but if he starts to wander off or he doesn't tip his nose toward me, okay, I'll use that lead rope to support and correct. Good job. All right, so now he's yielding his hips pretty well, and the hips are very important because, again, the hips are their engine. That's what control the horse's body. Okay, and if we can get control of the engine, we can start to gain respect out of our horse. And then the other thing is the hips are some of the most dangerous part, or one of the most dangerous parts of the body. They can kick and strike and become dangerous with their hindquarter. And if we can yield the hindquarter out of the way, we can start to gain respect, and they'll be a lot safer. Okay. All right, now we're going to work on asking this horse to yield his forehand. Okay, so I'm going to stack my spine, energy up, start driving the air. Okay, and I'll close the gap and get a little bit closer. Drive his hair, skin. If he tries to run away, I'll just bring my stick out and keep tapping until he yields the front end. Lift to stop the drift, rub him, and start again. Energy up. Drive his nose, hair, skin, okay, until he moves his front end away. Then I'll let him think. Okay. Stack my spine, bring my energy up, lift my stick, start to rhythmically drive his nose and his neck. Good, until he yields his shoulder, just one step. Okay. This is how we teach horses that are too spacey and trying to run us over how to respect our personal space. It's also how we teach horses that want to bite and nip how to become more respectful. If you can drive a dominant horse's nose and neck out of your personal space, they won't nip you, because now you've become the leader. Now you're controlling their nose, neck, and mouth, and they're starting to respect you versus trying to come in and invade your space and try to bite you. Okay, I'll ask him to stop. Don't run away. And I'll ask him just to yield one step and stop. Good. Okay. Try one more time and then we'll switch sides. Energy up. Rhythmic pressure, drive the air, then the hair. Good. That was pretty nice. And the goal of this exercise is to have the horse yield the forehand around the hindquarter without walking forward. Eventually 360 degrees. Be able to yield his hindquarter, yield his forehand around his hindquarter without walking forward. Okay. So now I'm going to switch sides. I'm going to put my right hand underneath his nose and jaw, and I'm going to see if he can switch sides by him moving his feet and me staying more stationary. Okay, right there, he's learning that I don't move my feet first, he moves his feet. Okay. Now we're on the right side. I've got my stick in my left hand, okay, and my rope in my right. So I can use my left hand that's closest to my horse to yield my horse out of the way. Okay? It's really important that we learn how to switch hands. Okay? It's one, we want to be congruent with our cues, and two, if we're going to ask our horses to be two-sided, we need to be two-sided too. We need to be coordinated on both sides. Okay? If I tried to yield this horse with my right arm because I'm dominant on my right arm, it's not as effective. I can't reach as far. But when I'm switch hands to my left hand, which is closest to the horse, now I can reach out and touch him, and I've got better control of my stick. Okay, so it's important that we learn how to use our non-dominant hand, okay, whichever that might be. Okay, so I'm going to bring my energy up, start driving the air and his nose. If he walks away, I'll just disengage him and say, I don't want you to walk away. Start all over again. Good. Have him yield one step and stop. Then relax. Relax and wait for him to lick his lips or lower his head or blow out. Okay. He's being a little bit playful, which I don't mind. Okay, get his attention, drive the air, drive his hair. Good. Wait for him to yield his front end. Okay, energy up, rhythm in my body. Good. Want him to yield to my personal space. Okay, try it again. Energy up. There we go. Lift to stop the drift. Make sure he doesn't try to walk away. Say, all I want you to do is we'll move one step and stop. Good. All right. Now one day, I want to be able to do all these maneuvers and have him basically stay in one spot, not drift all around the arena. Okay, he's a young horse, so for today he did pretty good. He started yielding his hindquarter, one step and then stopping without walking forward, yielding the forehand, one step and stop without walking forward. But I kind of had to drift around this arena to get that done. What I'd like to have is that we can stay in one spot. I can yield the hindquarter 360 degrees, yield the forehand 360 degrees, and that horse basically hasn't moved out of the same spot that we started in. Okay, that's another way that we start judging quality, is we judge phases and the lack of movement, or doing the movement that we've asked, with relaxation and respect. Okay. So now what we're going to start to work on is the next phase is follow a feel, a steady pressure. We want this horse to start to understand what lightness and follow a feel means. So but previously we were driving the horse with rhythmic pressure. So when we use rhythmic pressure, we're asking the horse to yield away from us through space and time. This is an exercise for distance. So if I want to be out here and ask my horse to yield its hip, okay, I'm asking it from a distance. Okay. If I want to ask my horse to yield from steady pressure, I have to come up and make a connection to my horse. So for example, I can ask this horse to yield its hip from steady pressure. And the phases of steady pressure are hair, skin, muscle, bone. Okay, I can take my hand and make a C. Then I'm going to put my hand on my horse's rib cage, on the last rib, and just touch the hair. Okay, and as soon as my horse moves, okay, I'll release. Try it again. Touch my horse's hair. Okay, and as soon as she or he moves his hip, I'll release. Okay, we'll do it over here so you guys can see it. Okay, we're going to make a C with our hand. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to touch the tip of his hair, and I'm going to wait. Then I'm going to add more pressure, touch the skin. I'm going to wait. Okay, if he moves, I'll release. Then I'll ask again. Hair, skin, muscle, bone, and weight. Now, notice I didn't go with him. I kept my hand stationary because I want it to be his idea to yield away from the pressure. I don't want him to think I'm pushing him away. Okay, I don't want him to think I'm pushing him away. I want the pressure to increase, but his idea to move away from it. So he seeks lightness. So we'll do that again. Hand in a C. Okay. Hair, skin, good. Now this time he moved at skin pressure. So I'm keeping a running tally in my head. I'm keeping track of the amount of pressure it takes and how many times that it takes for him to yield. So the last time, okay, he yielded at phase 4, which is bone. And it took him about 3 seconds to move off of bone pressure. Okay, this time he moved at phase 2, which is at skin pressure, and it only took him about 2 seconds. So that's an improvement. He's starting to learn, and if we can get it 3 times in a row, he's formed the beginning of a pattern. Okay. There, he moved at skin pressure. So I asked hair first, then skin, and he moved off. So he's got 2 times in a row that he's moved off of skin pressure. Okay, I can rub him and try it again. Make a C with my hand. Come and ask phase 1, skin, hair pressure. Phase 2, skin. Phase 3, okay, muscle. And he moved off of muscle. He got a little distracted. There's someone walking down the hill. He was looking at the person walking down the hill, and he got a little distracted on me versus looking at outside stimulus, okay? As he gets better, he'll stop looking at everything around him, okay? As he gets more confident. I'll ask him again. Hair, skin, muscle, there. He moved away from it. Okay, and it was his decision. I didn't push any harder. I just waited for him to make a decision. Hair, there. Good. All right. Okay, we'll try it again. There. Now he moved away at hair pressure. All right. Now I'm going to come around to the. We'll do it one more time so you can see it on this side. Then we'll switch sides. Okay. Make a C with my hand. Put my fingertips right on his last rib cage. Again, we're simulating what our leg is going to be asking, and ask him at hair pressure to move his hip. Okay. And if you want to know what hair pressure feels like, okay, take the tip of your finger, touch the tip of your eyelash. All right. That's the lightest phase that I want a horse moving off of. The tip of your finger on your eyelash, okay? So we want to make sure that we ask at that phase every time as our phase 1. If we ask firmer than that, or with more pressure, our horse will become sensitized to a higher phase of pressure. Another word is our horse will be duller than we want to, or less responsive than we want them to. So always remember that if we want our horses to be sensitive and light, we have to offer lightness first, every time, okay? So now we're going to come over to his right side. So I'm going to take my right hand, put it underneath his jaw, ask him to step away, and he switches sides with me, okay? So I'll come over to his right hip, again. We'll make the C, my left hand. Now I'm just going to rub him. That was his idea to walk away. I'm just going to rub on him and let him know he doesn't need to walk away. I'm not asking him anything yet. Okay. I'm going to take my hand, make a C, ask with hair pressure for him to yield his hip, skin, good, and release. Okay. Again, one day I'm going to be on his back, and this is going to be my leg asking him to yield his hip, okay? And we're also doing isolations for the goal of lateral, okay? We're going to need this horse to go sideways one day. We're going to need a hip control to work on leads and lead changes, or him switching directions. So this is the beginning of being able to do all of that. Okay, rub him. If he wants to walk away, that's okay. I'll just tell him, don't get in my space. You can't run me over. Okay, I'll just flop my arms like a chicken and ask him to get out of my personal space, because he can't be dangerous. Hair, skin, good. Don't walk forward. And it's just like our rhythmic pressure hindquarter yield, is I want him not only yielding at the lightest phase, phase 1, but I also want him not walking forward. Okay, phase 1, ask him to yield his hip, good. Do it one more time and see if he can yield at the same phase. Get his attention, good. Ask hair. Okay, I don't want his shoulder coming up over me. I want him to yield his hip. Good. All right. So now that we have his hips moving. Okay, we've got control of his hips with steady pressure. Okay, again, protecting my personal space. Don't want him coming up over the top of me. I'm going to use the same technique, so ask him to follow a feel of steady pressure away and yield the front end, okay, or the forehand. I'm going to put my hand right behind his shoulder and ask hair, skin, muscle, bone, and I want his right front leg to move, ideally in front of his left front, but all he has to do is move it just a little bit to the left, okay? And the reason why I'm driving his nose and neck is because he keeps leaning toward me, okay? He's leaning toward me because he's trying to subtly push me around. I'm gonna ask him again, hair, skin, muscle, bone, just hold. Okay, there. He took one step and I released. So this is, again, simulating our leg and sensitizing this horse to leg pressure, okay, and also turning. Because in Western horsemanship, we turn our horses with our focus and our legs. Our reins are for two things, shaping and bending, okay, and supporting what our body is asking, okay. Our reins come in last. So our horses really have to understand how to move off of our leg. Okay, hair, skin, muscle, bone, good. Release when he tries. Hair. Okay. Now he took weight off of his right front. I released when he took weight off of his right front because he's thinking about getting lighter. Okay. So it's not just about if they do the maneuver properly and waiting until they cross their front foot off of in front of their left front. I'm asking, as soon as he puts weight, takes the weight off, you can release, and that's releasing at the slightest try. Okay, he's trying to lean into me, so I'm just letting him know he cannot lean into me. And again, I'm looking good from the start, moving at lighter and lighter phases. So if you can see, I haven't switched sides yet because he's still responding at about phase 3 or 4. And he's also still leaning against me. Okay, this is where that forehand yield comes in handy, is I can ask him to yield his front away and say, don't try to run me over. Don't try to push me. Okay. Now, there's a reason why I started these exercises with rhythmic pressure. Okay, with rhythmic pressure. Okay. One, because it's safer to start to ask the hindquarter and the forehand to yield with rhythmic pressure because I don't have to get as close. I can yield their body parts from a safer distance away and get control and respect. The other reason why we're working on rhythmic pressure before steady pressure is because in the herd hierarchy, when horses go to groom each other, okay, and touch each other, it's usually the dominant horse that touches the less dominant horse first and grooms them first. And then usually grooming leads to dominance games, biting each other, okay, and fighting each other, and discovering who will win in a dominance fight. Okay, so when I touch this horse, and if he's never been touched before, he might assume that he needs to try to dominate me. If I've already sensitized him, okay, to rhythmic pressure and yielding away from that at a safe distance, okay, then when I come in with steady pressure, I have a greater probability of him understanding and not trying to dominate me, throw his shoulder into me and trying to bite me. Okay, so there's a reason why we're sequencing this, the way we're sequencing it is because it's a little bit of herd psychology and herd behavior and techniques that are the most successful in succession. Okay, we'll do it one more time on the right side. I'll ask hair, skin, muscle. Okay, he moved off at muscle, good. All right, and I'll allow him to have that. Okay, he's starting to get a little bit lighter on his shoulders. He doesn't have to get perfect today. Okay, and when we get further along, we'll start combining techniques to cause him to get lighter and lighter. Okay. Take my hand, make a C, rub him till he stops first. Rub him till he starts moving. And I'm going to put my hand right about on the last rib of his rib cage. Okay, and just touch the tip of his hair. Okay. And if we were thinking about what it feels like, take your finger, put it on the tip of your eyelash and touch your eyelash. That's how light I'm going to touch him for phase 1. Okay. So I'm going to ask him again. Put my fingers on the tip of his hair and wait till he yields away and release. Okay. Put my finger on the tip of his hair. Good. If he starts to walk forward, I'll just lift my line up and ask him to stop. Okay. I'm not pulling him, I'm just lifting the lead line. So hair, skin, muscle, bone, and just wait until he decides to move. Okay, and it's just steady pressure. It's not rhythm. I'm not poking him. I'm not doing that. Okay, I'm just holding steady pressure until he decides to move. And see how my hand didn't follow. It stayed right where I had stopped my steady pressure until he yielded. I'm going to ask this horse to yield its forehand with steady pressure. I'm going to make a C with my hand. My fingers are closed together, and I'm going to use the 4 phases of pressure. First, I'm going to ask with the hair, and just ask the tip of the hair. You can see how his skin is reacting like a fly just landed on him. That's how light I want him to be eventually. So I'm going to ask hair, wait for about 3 seconds, then skin pressure, and as soon as he moves that left front, I'll release. We'll get more particular in time, and I'll do it again. Hair, skin, muscle, bone if he hasn't moved yet, and just hold until he yields away or makes an effort to go away from my pressure. And we're going to keep doing this until he gets lighter. Okay, we'll do that again. Hair, skin, muscle, bone. Okay, let him think. Hair. There. So I went up to skin and he yielded. So now that I know my horse is confident, we can start to use communication of our body language first and our tools second. I'm going to ask this horse to yield its hip with rhythmic pressure. So first I'm going to bring my energy up and I'm going to start to drive rhythmically. My rhythm's coming from my chest all the way down my arm, driving the air as phase 1, then touching the hair. Good. As soon as he moves his legs, I'll release. Ask again. Drive the air. Good. I'll relax. Let him know that he's done a good job and he can we release the pressure and allow him just to stand there. Good job. Okay. And I'm going to keep working on this till I see him cross his legs. Good, at phase 1. And see if he can do that again. Good. And I'm looking for him to get lighter and lighter in this communication. Energy up. Drive the air. Good. He starts to yield his hindquarter. Good. And again, I don't want him going forward, and I don't want him bringing his shoulder into me. So if he walks forward, I'll lift my lead rope up and ask him to stop. Okay, and then I'll drive his hindquarter again until he starts to stand still and yield his hindquarter without moving forward. And again, if he tries to bring his right shoulder into me, I'll block him, okay, and encourage him just to stand there, and eventually he'll learn how to yield his hindquarter without moving forward. He'll start to understand isolations. Good. And this is going to be really important when we start riding, because we don't want him to assume that pressure means forward. Just because we're asking him to move, that he has to add a forward movement to it. Good job. Okay, now I'm going to switch sides and I'm going to ask him to yield off of rhythmic pressure, yield his front end. And again, I'm evaluating whether he's learned something from yesterday. Energy up, start driving the air. Okay, now he's moving at phase 1. He's moving just when I start rhythmically driving the air. This is exactly what we're looking for. So this is meaning that he learned something from the last 2 sessions. Okay, the first session he was kind of wandering off and I was having to correct him a lot, asking him not to go forward and lifting my rope. Now I'm not having to lift my rope. And it's another important thing, is that when you watch me, I'm allowing and putting this rope forward. Now I'm driving his nose and neck, asking for a forehand yield. I'm waiting for him to stop. I don't lift my rope if I don't see him moving forward. I need to allow him to make a mistake, okay, so that he starts using his brain. So he has to think about these principles and concepts. I'm not going to correct him before he makes a mistake. Good. There we go. So he's understanding a forehand yield without walking forward. So that means that he's starting to understand this information and starting to own the skill of yielding on the forehand off of rhythmic pressure. Hey, buddy. Okay, we always want to keep these horses curious and confident. Make sure we take time out to give them a break. Allow them to rest. Pressure motivates, release teaches. Pressure motivates, the release is what teaches. Okay, so that means that a horse learns not when we're putting pressure on them, but when we stop putting pressure on. That's when they really learn what we're asking them to do. Okay, most humans assume that horses learn while we're putting pressure on them. Okay, and that's sometimes what gets us in trouble. We don't give them a break. Okay, we're going to yield him from the right side and ask him to go left. Okay, if he walks off, or he walks forward, I'll lift my lead rope up. If he wants to scratch, he can scratch. Good. So already on the right side, he might be a little bit misunderstanding what I'm asking and walking forward, so I'll have to correct him. That's okay. Good. Energy up. Drive with rhythm. Drive his nose and his neck. Okay. And ask him to back up. So just reminding him that this is not a forward maneuver. His shoulder yields at a halt. Good job, buddy. Okay, this is all going to come and benefit us as soon as we start working on riding. Okay. I'm just going to check in with his hindquarter, make sure his hindquarter can still yield. Good. Excellent. All right, now I want to do the same thing, asking his hips and his hindquarter to yield using steady pressure. So first, hair, good. And I'm asking his hindquarter to yield away from steady pressure without walking forward. And our phases are hair, skin, muscle, bone. And at any time our horse moves, we release pressure immediately. Okay, with our goal of our horse eventually moving off of hair pressure. Good. Gonna ask him again, hair, skin, muscle, bone, good. Hair, good, there he goes. Okay, so he's starting to learn how to move off of just hair pressure. And again, we're simulating our leg when our leg is going to be asking our horses to yield body parts. So they have to understand how to isolate their body parts without moving anything else and without going forward. Good. Hair, skin, muscle, good, and release when he moves. Hair, good. Okay, I'm just encouraging him not to lean into me again with his nose and neck. I'm saying keep your head straight and yield your shoulders, good. Okay, keep your head straight, yield the shoulder, attaboy. Okay, put my hand underneath his nose, ask him to yield his nose and neck. If he wants to push into me, I'll just encourage him not to push me with his face by driving rhythmically with my hand. Okay, I'm going to ask his shoulder to move on this side, good. All I need is one step and stop. Then I release pressure and ask again. Okay, whenever we release pressure, we're rewarding our horse. Good. I'll ask is on his hindquarter.